Cats, cops, and C4. Thank you, Your Honor, Cuddy Downshift says as she rises up. She has her shrink tech on most of the way, so she's standard scale, but still towering to most races. Granted, a Conador would call her shrimpy, but trying to get one up on a race like that is just asking for things to get out of hand. Now, while this case may seem simple or straightforward, it very much is not. Yes, the question of guilt or innocence is at the heart of us being here. However, the sheer scale and scope of the differing kinds of guilt we are dealing with is awe-inspiring in how brazenly these crimes have been and impressive in their variety. From insider trading to cloning without a license, theft of identity, the funding of criminal and terrorist groups, and attempted murder are just the beginnings of what I have to prove to you all. I mean, let's be fair here. The building code violations of the hidden laboratory found under the accused home seems oh so very petty compared to the fact that there is an illegal cloning center under the accused house. We have a great deal to go through, and the sooner we begin, the sooner we can start getting through it all. Thank you. Cotty sits down after that and smiles. The digital readout that is her face makes her seem much smugger than she actually is. Then Arthur stands up at Basilash's prompting. Your Honor, thank you for this chance to speak, and we must speak out against what is clearly an enormous and unjustifiable frame job against a law-abiding citizen who has contributed enormously to Centris and all its plates and spires. Certainly jealousy can be expected at such a point, but to this extent? For a woman where the worst thing on her personal record is the occasional fine for overindulging at company parties to be treated in such a manner, to have her whole life and reputation torn to pieces by the paranoid flailing of a rampaging military force that seems to have little respect and less regard for the customs and norms of the wider galaxy, is terrifying. While my opponent has very succinctly put it that the question of guilt and innocence is indeed the heart of this case, as it must be for any legal case, the fact of the matter is that a case of this type is very much the gateway to further such cases. If we allow this blatant and rampant defamation go unhindered, or indeed unpunished, then who will be the next targeted by those undaunted of things such as manners, morals, or decorum? Thank you. Very good. The prosecution may bring in its first witness. Basilash states, very good. I will be calling Police Chief Teresa Bowman to the stands. Kati states, and at Basilash's nod, the Koiran woman is led into the courtroom and takes her place on the witness stand. State your name for the record, please, Basilash says. I am Teresa Bowman. Very well. Continue, Miss Downshift. Very good. Now, can you please describe the events of the day in which Miss Frost came under the protection of your officers and the numerous exciting events that occurred? To keep things on the pertinent details and not mere trivia or minutia, the events began with several murders. The victims found cut in half at the waist and their lower halves reduced to ash with plasma fire. Detective Linda Score and her husband, undaunted specialist on loan to our precinct, Cenk Barnabas, accompanied her alongside her sister wife, Vera Arlitos. They were in the process of setting up a cordon so that crime scene investigation could arrive when Specialist Barnabas heard a scream and rushed to assist. He found the heiress Amy Frost cut in half and her assailant escaping. Making a snap judgment, he saved her life and kept her stable long enough for medical professionals to arrive and save her life. That was not all though, was it? Cotty asked. It was not. After Miss Frost was healed, the killer returned and attacked. This killer was wearing an unusual veil that Specialist Barnabas reflexively tore off her face to expose her identity and to ward her off somewhat. The removal of the veil caused the killer to fall into a catatonic state. And this killer was tied to Miss Comet Howe. The killer was a clone, wearing a distinctive veil that controlled her actions. From my understanding, identical clones wearing identical veils have been found under Miss Comet's mansion, having been mass-produced by the facilities there. So you can confirm that these clones, Cotty begins holding up a communicator to project images of the clones that had been recovered from the laboratory, are identical to the killer that attempted to take the life of Miss Frost? Physically, yes. Granted, they look considerably more alive than the killer. More alive? What happened? Cotty prompts. There was an implanted suicide device in the killer's body. It used intense heat to kill her and mangle much of her equipment. Only the veil survived due to it being in Specialist Barnabas's hand at the time. Chief Bowman states, I see. Would you say that it would seem as if the woman was disposable then? As if she were mass-produced and of little worth to her controller? I would say she was disposed of. The moment it became clear she would be of no further use to whoever controlled her, her life ended. As simple and as terrible as that, Chief Bowman says in a slightly haunted tone. But that wasn't the end of it, was it? Far from it. That first day just never seemed to stop. As Officer Score was bringing the veil and escorting the justly terrified Miss Frost to the station for her own protection, with her family assisting, Specialist Barnabas began sensing danger and started to coordinate with the Undaunted to preserve the evidence as best he could. I see. And what did these measures include? He took a picture of the evidence within its container and had his fellows in the Undaunted get an identical container for the purposes of making a switch, obfuscating where the actual evidence was. Chief Bowman explains and looks past Cotty as she sees Arthur pump a fist in triumph. But these measures were needed, weren't they? Cotty asks. They were, because no less than 4 different criminal organizations hit my station to try and get their hands on the evidence, ranging from a combat drone to an assassin to an organization of skilled cloak-and thieves to a raging criminal mob. All of them hit the station at once looking for the evidence. Why was it so important, and how did they know you have it? Well, to answer the second part first, criminals watch criminals. It's why stings and undercover work are both so important. All 4 of the groups had bugged or were watching the other groups, or knew they were being watched to begin with. They were not surprises to each other and were all mutually looking to take advantage of the others, trying to get the evidence. And its importance? It was a piece of Miss Big's toolkit. They recognized it, and some of them hoped to get a favor out of her, or try to track her down. Miss Big? I thought it was Miss Common on the defendant's chair. Cotty asked, looking back dramatically, and then back to Chief Bowman. Miss Big is a criminal pseudonym. Very few lawbreakers use their actual name when introducing themselves. For example, the woman that sent the drone to attack the station is known as the Landrak. I'd put solid credits on the Landrak, having never seen a Landrak in person, let alone somehow being a non-sapient herbivorous reptile ranched for meat and leather. I see. Could you describe Miss Big to the best of your abilities then? If we are to work under the assumption that Miss Big is Miss Comet, then we need to know about this supposed other side to her. Cotty says, and she sees Jenny sit back down after she had started to rise to protest, but was clearly going over the exact phrasing she used again and had seen where Cotty had laid some bait. No physical description, just a pattern of behavior that our undercover agents, interrogations, and other information gathering methods have found, Chief Bowman says, and Cotty nods before gesturing for her to continue. But what is known is that Miss Big is both cautious and audacious. A strange combination, but not an ineffective one. Any and all attempts to find the identity of Miss Big simply cause her to go to ground and cease all activities until the investigations finish, at which point she returns to business as usual, although there is a long streak of reprisals to investigators. Nothing we can lead back, but that's her pattern. The moment you get close, she goes completely dark. Skittish but bold, not afraid to attack people publicly, but the moment you even look towards the general hemisphere she's on, she vanishes. That sounds aggravating to deal with. Hence why identifying her patterns is so important. She normally operates out of 3 main agents: an unusually tall Tret, a snick that smells deeply of blood, and a Pavarus with white and red coloration. So what happened after the big fight? We retrieved the evidence and began examining it. The veil was confirmed to be a mind control-based artifact that gave overwhelming impulses to do certain deeds. It had, however, been damaged in its rough handling when it was torn off the face of the killer, Chief Bowman states. There were then further incidents, including a jailbreak of the large arrested mob being broken out by their leader, an undaunted retaliation against the Cloaking Gang, as they were tricked into taking the decoy evidence container during the scuffle, and inside it was a homing beacon. This led to the arrest of the Cloaking organization. Any more? Retaliation. A mercenary was hired to attempt to kill the officers responsible. She was not caught, but after several failed attacks, she sent a message stating that the price was no longer worth it and she was leaving. She has not been heard from since, and the attack ceased. I see. Now, at what point did all this mess start connecting with Miss Comet? Cotty asks. Mostly through following evidence and reasoning. When it became clear that the initial targets were in the employ of Solid Security Incorporated, and Miss Frost had the controlling shares of the company, we started seeing patterns and investigating. Miss Comet was on the short list of people that would benefit enormously if Miss Frost were to suddenly suffer a fatal accident or find herself otherwise killed. Any other reason? It had been found that every 6 months after she changed her job, there were always at least one unsolved murder. It was an odd pattern, but on a planet with the population level of Centris, it could easily be a coincidence. But it was still odd enough for it to keep her high on the suspect list. Anything else odd about these deaths? Beyond the timing of the murders and their unsolved status? Cowdy asks. Yes, they were always employees of, or somehow tied to the companies she had either just left or the one she was about to go into. But it was never the company she was currently working with. That made it far less of a coincidence and far more of a pattern. But again, Centris is simply enormous. It wasn't enough to prosecute with, but enough to pay attention. Yes, Chief Bowman states. And do you know how and why this case, which started off on your own spire, somehow got to the Vanitas plate? Cotty asks. Simply put, Miss Frost was under protection by both Undaunted and my own officers. Things continued there and Miss Comet was listed as a suspect. Cooperation was sought with local police for the relevant districts, and a search warrant was obtained. But when the move was made to arrest her, her desk exploded. She began trying to escape, and numerous hostile clones were released. At the same time, renewed assassination attempts were aimed at Miss Frost. And how were these arrests taking place? From my understanding, the Undaunted soldiers were to shadow the local police forces as they performed their duties in this regard, and only act if and when violence broke out. Which it did. It did indeed. Without direct Undaunted interference, there would have been numerous police casualties and likely even innocent civilians being killed, if not for them immediately storming the laboratory to shut it down. Does that lead us to now, or is there more? As far as my understanding goes, yes, Chief Bowman states. Thank you for your time. No further questions, Your Honor. Very good. Defense, the witness is yours. Basilash states, and Jenny slinks off her chair and begins walking to the stand on all fours, only rising up into a bipedal stance when she's close enough to the booth to use it to prop herself up. Chief Bowman, I have several rather important questions. First and foremost, however, is about the unusual chain of custody you've used with important pieces of evidence. This so-called mind control veil, it was traded out for long enough for another identical container, holding who knows what, to be stolen by an outside party and the original returned after it was in the care of the Undaunted? Jenny asked, throwing up her hands and making the air quotes around original with her claws. That is correct. So you admit that there was a period of time in which this piece of crucial evidence that numerous criminal gangs saw as so valuable as to openly assault a fully staffed police station on high alert was not in the care of yourself or an approved officer of the law at all times? Jenny demands. Yes. Fascinating.